Welcome back to the Creatively Curious podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Walter. In today's episode, I'll be going over week 3 of the Creative Visionary program, and week 3 is on play. So it's a pretty fun topic, and actually, interestingly, one that last year when I took the program, I felt really awkward, like almost like I didn't really know how to play on the canvas or on the wooden panels that we're using, or even in my sketchbook. I was feeling like, what is that? Like, I need to paint a picture. And lots of times I would have a photograph that I was painting from. So I kind of knew what I was painting, and I had a plan, and I do a sketch before. And so playing and not having like an agenda and a purpose was just felt really foreign to me. So basically this week, which was last week, my review is playing. So just taking some of the panels, 12 by 12 wooden panels that we're working on, and just having no agenda. So Nick says the best art is made when we are fully present. I'm in Canada, so we don't have to think about that. Fully present when we're curious, we play, we're free, we're authentic, and safe to be totally ourselves. And, when you think about it, like kids, that's all they pretty much, unless they're going to school, all they do is play. And as an occupational therapist, you look at kids and their main occupation, which is something that's meaningful and important to them that they want to do throughout their day. Their main occupation is play. And so, and even when they're in school, they have lots of recess, and I feel like the best teachers, my daughter has a really great teacher right now, and she teaches them through play. And, she has these fun ways of teaching them things, teaching them words and teaching them numbers. And it's just so neat to see that because they're interested and they're engaged and they're having fun. And we somehow lose that along the way, which is sad. And, we need to find every way we can to bring that back. And painting for me is that way. Having kids has been that way for me, that they just relate so much better to even if you want them to do certain things, they they're more receptive to it if it's done with play. So I'm just gonna read a few of my notes. Uh, and here, yeah, Nick says, Nicholas Wilton, who created this program, he says, usually, we're used to rules and procedures and told what to do and stay in the lines and sit in your chair and be quiet. And so having the opportunity to play where there is no agenda, there are no rules, no one's telling you what to do, is so restorative and just so good for our soul. And he goes on to talk about how our intuition is the voice of the soul, and that this comes out when we play. And I just love that because, um, you know, giving ourselves that space to create, giving ourselves some space for more like silence, and just having things come to us as they may with no agenda is just so fun. Uh, let's see. I wrote down this. Everything is set up in your favor. You just have to trust this. So that's pretty neat. And, who would we be if we believe that? Really, for anything that we do, everything is set up in your favor. You just have to trust this. He says quite a bit through this program, following what you love, following your inspiration, tracking that making art will lead you where you need to be and the things you need to learn. Creative ideas come to those who are ready. That's Liz Gilbert says that. But he mentions this tracking, tracking what feels good, going following the breadcrumbs of what you love doing, that's what you need to do, nothing else. And what are you saying yes to? What are you saying no to? And it's hard. I would say too, being a life coach, um, and even in my own life, it's hard to trust that. It's hard to trust that I can just follow what feels good and not do what doesn't feel good. But generally, when I'm doing that, I'm so rewarded by it. And oh, that tracking piece reminds me of this book that uh actually my life coach recommended to me, The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life by Boyd Varty, Boyd, and then his last name is Varty, Varty. He is also a certified, looks like he's a master life coach with Martha Beck's program. And this book is just amazing. It's so beautiful and so, it talks about like tracking animals in South Africa, and it's just really neat. And he lives his life, um, it sounds like half the time in South Africa and half the time in the United States. And I won't go too much into this book, but as trackers, our part is to be awake. Our part is to listen. We want to hear the call. Tracking begins with wanting to track. And so that's that piece of following the breadcrumbs. You just follow each little clue as it comes, and you don't have a destination. You don't have that. You might have an idea of how you want to feel or a general idea, but you don't really know how you're going to get there. And so you really have to trust that process. So I love that Nick said that. Yeah, follow what feels good. And for those of you who are potentially watching this, I'll just show you a piece from my sketchbook that I did during this play week. So I ended up using here where I live. I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but I call them apple pears, Asian apples, I think. They come with this sort of styrofoamy mesh protective sleeve. And I love that thing for making texture. So I just paint right on, actually I cut it open because it comes as a tube around the apple pear. I cut it open so it will lay flat, and then I paint on it, and then I press it to either my sketchbook, or I've put it on canvas before as well, and it just works really beautifully for making a texture. So that's an example of playing. And then I love using just like random things like uh, caps from bottles, or even the bottom of the bottles themselves. Um, I got this, I don't even know what it was, but it was like a rectangular piece of kind of stiff styrofoam. I think it was in one of my kids' like a game or toy or something that they got. And I just thought, oh, that'll be awesome for using for pressing. Like basically it just is like a square stamp. So again, I'm holding up a page from my sketchbook, and I just use that stamp. And on this page, I ended up just using a plastic palette knife. And that's how I put all the paint. I squished, the background is like a thin, high fluid acrylic paint. And then I squished the paint right onto the palette, and then just kind of scraped it and just played around that way. And one of the things they said, I'm probably going to forget because I didn't actually write it down, is that when you're playing and when you're being creative, nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong when you're playing and being creative. And I just loved that. It just made me take a breath, I put my shoulders down, and I just felt relieved by that. Like nothing is wrong. And what if we all believe that? Like, and it doesn't, well, everything we do is creative, I believe, but like what if we just felt that way about everything, that nothing was wrong, and we're just trying and testing things out and seeing what works and what feels good and what doesn't. So that's my review of this week. Play, play, play. How can you play in anything? It doesn't have to be painting. There, I'll mention this because I feel very proud of myself for I created this game with my kids that sounds kind of ridiculous, but they love it and it's pretty fun. It's called Got Your Belly. Now, obviously, have consent for touching each person's belly. Um, but we play it when we're waiting for the bus for my daughter to take to school. And we literally, it's kind of like tag, I guess, but we just say, got your belly if you, if you touch near the belly. And my kids currently are 10 and almost 5, and they love it. It's super fun. We laugh a lot in the morning, and like what a good way to start the day. So it doesn't have to necessarily be with art, but how can you approach even just a little sliver of your day with play, more curiosity, no agenda, and just doing what feels good. And let me know if you try it. I'd love to hear. Take care.